Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are having a fine Monday morning. Why don't we start off this week with episode 14 of our Firebase 3 real-time chat app tutorial. Now I'm also super excited because I finally figured out how to record my iPhone display right here, iPhone display, onto the screen for you guys to kind of look at. And what this means is we can actually have two chat apps going on at the same time. So before I show you guys that, let's quickly go over what we built in the last video, which are these really cool chat bubbles right here that kind of encapsulate all of the text for each one of the messages between Tyrion Lannister and Jon Snow, who is my current logged in user. So I'm going to bring this over just a little bit, and I'm going to drag in my iPhone display right here. So currently, the similar in the middle is logged in as Jon Snow. I'm going to log in as Tyrion inside of my phone. So let's get rid of that guy, Tyrion. And I will log in with tyrion@gmail.com, like so, and punch in the super secure password of 6 Qs, and now we get the log or the messages controller showing this exact same chat log. And inside of the kind of completed version of my application here, we see that the messages that are incoming from Jon Snow are actually rendered out as these gray bubbles with black text, and also the profile image on the bottom left. And if I try to enter a message with Tyrion Lannister logged in on my iPhone, I can actually just punch in some text. So some text for Jon Snow. And I'm gonna hit the send button right here. That's going to get me the actual bubble as a blue for the outgoing. And so what we want to do is, instead of having this blue message here for some text, we actually want to render this as the gray bubble coming in from Tyrion Lannister on my phone right here. So that's what we are going to be building today. And one thing I kind of want to mention on my phone is that the keyboard right here, you see how we can kind of dismiss it interactively like that. And if you actually bring up the keyboard in the simulator, it is going to cover the input area. And perhaps I'll show you guys how to fix that in another video. So stay tuned for that one. But in this video here, we're just going to walk through how to make these gray bubbles appear inside of our chat log controller. So let's get ready to rumble here with our code. I'm gonna run the application and go to chat log controller to see what we want to do to get the gray bubbles to show up. All right, looks good. Now, the easiest way to do this is to kind of first determine what the gray bubbles, or which one of these messages should be rendered out as gray. And I'm going to do that inside of a chat log controller, inside of a cell for item at index path. Now, inside of perhaps this line 88 here, I can actually detect if this message should be the blue one or the gray one with an if statement if message.fromID is equal to fir auth current users .uid. Okay, and this is going to be the outgoing blue, and here in the else case we're going to be rendering the incoming gray messages. And inside of here I can just simply type cell.bubbleview background color equals some kind of blue color. So this needs to be this blue color here. So for now, let's just use blue color, and then inside of the gray bit of code, we'll say bubbleview.background color equals UI color dot perhaps light gray color. And we'll fix the color in just a moment here. And running the app will get the rendering of, let's see, the blue bubble like this, and then the gray bubble down here. So let's fix the color real fast, why don't we? All right, inside of chat message cell, we have this bubble view guy, and we have background color equal to this color. Now, something I see that junior developers consistently do in their code is to actually copy and paste the actual color like that. And this is bad, because if you go back to chat message controller or chat message cell, this color, if you modify the color here, for example, punch in a value of that, now your colors are inconsistent. between those two files. So why don't we do this a little safer by introducing a class variable of static let blue color equals, let's see, this value, right? This value down here. And then you can just punch in blue color like that, like so. And this will actually set it to the class variable. Now, if we go back to ChatLogController, we can build the project first, and then chat message cell will have this blue color available on its class property. So that's how you would change this. And inside of background color for the light gray color, I could actually just provide an RGB value of 240, 240, and 240. That gives me a very light gray color for the bubble. Let's run. All right. So we run, and we now get this gray bubble right here. And why don't we change the text color while we're at it? So I actually would like to also introduce some refactoring in our code, because I don't really like a lot of this modification inside of this cell here. So why don't we actually introduce a bit of a cleanup work right here. So if I actually just introduce a private function, set up cell. So this cell will be this chat message cell, and then this message will be the actual message like so. I can actually just copy out all this code in here and paste it in there and call it setup cell for this cell up above, and this message is that down there. So instead of filling up this with all this code here, I now have this nice area to just set up my views. Okay, now the incoming gray area will change the text to this black color. So UI text, the text color equals UI color of black color. And then inside of the blue area, we have to make sure that it stays white, like so. The reason why we have to do this is because cells, they do get reused inside of a list. In this specific case, this collection view, every time we drag up and down, these cells get reused. So we have to be careful about resetting the color. Okay, so what do we want to do now to make our app look kind of like this right here, where the gray is aligned to the left or aligned to the right of this image view? Well, we can do that if we go back to chat message cell right here, and we can do this inside of let's see, inside of here. So I want to actually introduce the image icon into my application first, and then we'll do the alignment a little later. What this means is I'll create a profile image view programmatically. Hope you guys like this approach with this closure, and let image view equals UI image view here. Image view dot, let's see, I'm going to set the image to this raw UI image from my assets, which is named Ned Stark, like that. So if you open up assets, we dragged in this image a couple of episodes ago. Finally, we just returned this image view like that, and execute this closure, giving us the image view, setting it to profile image view. Now, if we just run the application, we don't really get much. So we have to actually add it into the sub view like this, the cell sub view. And let's just see that. No image view just yet. And here we'll say, let's see, profile image view. And we are going to have to use these iOS 9 constraints to place this in view. Before I do that, remember, you always have to set this translates property to false. And there we go. And how do we want to actually render this guy onto the cell? Well, we have to place this image view on the left side of the cell. So profile, let's see, profile image view dot left anchor is actually going to be constrained. Let me just remove the project navigator, constrained to the self dot left anchor, and we just remove this constant perhaps. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to constant of 8 to bring it to, let's see, the edge, and then we have 8 pixels on the left of it. So that's what the 8 does. Profile image view, let's see, what is the Y value, well, y is going to be the bottom anchor constrained to the self.bottom anchor of the entire cell with a value of either 0 for the constant or just removing it like that. Profile image view, let's see, the width anchor is going to be constrained to a constant of 32. And the reason why I'm using 32 is because these rounded corners are actually 16. So this is twice of 16. Finally, profile image view, that height anchor is going to be the same thing, constrained to 32. And before all of this can work, we have to activate these constraints with active equals true. So I'm going to copy, paste down here. Okay, so running the application, we're going to see these nice icons being rendered onto the cell, hopefully. So there it is. We have Netstark's very, very nice image inside of our controller now. So how do we actually round out these corners here for Netstark? Well, let's do profile image view dot layer dot corner radius equals, what's 16, half of 32. And then we need to actually mask it by layer mask to bounds equals true. And while we're at it, I actually want to change the content mode to scale aspect fill. This will make sure that the aspect ratio for the image is actually kept or maintained whenever we render the image. So let's go in, and there we go. Nice and rounded, kind of like what we need. So the trickier part of this video is to actually clamp this gray bubble here to the right of the profile image view. So why don't we do that right now by going into, let's see, chat messages cell. And I actually want to do this right here. I want to modify the right anchor and introduce something else called a left anchor. So what I'm going to do is, first, I want to create a reference to this entire right anchor like this. And I'm going to cut this and call this bubble view right, let's see, anchor equals all that. And I'm going to use this reference up here. I'm just going to create one called bubble view right anchor of NS layout constraint type, optional, which means that I can now set it active equals true like that. And this code right here does absolutely nothing to change our current application because we haven't really modified anything, just created some references and made it available outside of the cell via this guy right there. So how I'm going to pin this to the left is I'm actually going to introduce a left anchor as well inside of my cell. So var bubble view left anchor is type NS layout constraint. And now I can use this anchor here, bubble view left anchor like that equals bubble view dot left anchor dot constraint to some kind of anchor. Let's use this one right here. This will be profile image view dot right anchor. See, right anchor with a constant of 8, which means I am going to pin this bubble to the right anchor of this profile image view, 8 pixels to the right of it. And that's what this left anchor means right here. So because the constraints constructed this way have an active equals false by default, so active is false, and I think it mentions it inside of this documentation here, you can either comment it out or just delete it. Doesn't matter so much. So if I run the application now, again, we won't see much change because this constraint is actually inactive. So clicking in, we get exactly the same thing, but now inside of Chatlog controller, we can actually modify the gray area like this. So if it's this gray bubble down here, I can say cell dot right anchor gives me this bubble view right anchor dot active equals false. Let's see, I think I need an optional here. There we go. And the cell dot bubble left anchor dot active equals true. So let's run this, and then we'll see the bubble, the gray bubble, be clamped to the left side of the cell. So let's get in there. And that's how we get the bubble to anchor to the left. Now you'll notice that if the bubble is blue, the image should actually not show up, which means that inside of the outgoing blue here, we can specify cell.profileImageView.hidden equals true. So we're going to hide it right there. And if we are, let's see, inside the gray, we'll unhide it with the value of false. So there we go. I'm going to run the application now. I think this property is a little counterintuitive when you're setting it, but that's how you play around with that hidden value. And here we go. We have just the gray bubble here being rendered with the image. And what is it that we need to do whenever we are inside of the blue here? So we're actually not complete with the implementation of these left and right anchors. Inside of the blue area, we actually have to flip these toggles so that it actually keeps the pinning, the clamping properly. And what happens is if you have a ton of messages and you scroll up and down, you'll see the bug if you don't include this. Anyhow, I think we are almost good to go here. Let's run the application. I don't think we'll see anything change in the app. And there we go. So if I log back in with my phone of, let's see, Tyrion Lannister here, I want to type in a couple of other messages. So let's see if I can just punch in all this autocomplete keyboard stuff here. And let's see if I send the message and we get that right there. So that looks pretty good. Now how do I actually render the image here to not be Ned Stark and instead use Tyrion Lannister's profile image view? Well, that's pretty easy. If we first, let's see, I guess we can set up the profile image view here inside of setup cell inside of chat log controller. So cell.profileImageView.load using some kind of URL string. Well, this string right here is actually message, not message, but it's currently self.user.profileImageURL like that. And if we unwrap this properly with an if let profile image URL equals that, and close it off with a brace, we can cut this, paste it in there, and use profile image URL. So that's what we get. I want to see what this does. So the way I include an indentation right here is to just hit the semicolon and it fixes it for me. So some of you guys might know that trick already, but if you don't, that's a very helpful way to include the indentation. So let's see, clicking in there, we now get Tyrion Lannister inside of our chat log controller. And the reason why this looks a little pixelated is because the image that we originally uploaded into Firebase storage is so large that when you shrink it down and downscale like this, you get this, I guess these bits of artifacts inside such a condensed image. So that's what we need to do. And that's kind of how you would implement these gray bubbles with these blue bubbles inside of your chat log controller. Now, that being said, I want to show you guys a different bug that has been occurring in our app for quite some time now. And this bug here is going to show itself whenever I include a list of a lot of messages. So hi, say hi, Brienne, and send. Let's go back. So that icon over there looks good and the name looks okay. And if I include a couple of more messages inside of my entire app, so hey Hodor, let's get you in there. I'm going to introduce perhaps another couple of messages. Hi Brad. I'm going to show you what this bug is by logging out and logging back in really quick. So hello, let's see, Mel, like so. Here we go. So I'm going to log out, or I'm not going to log out, but I'm going to rerun the application. And okay, so see how sometimes the images actually blink in and out. Let's see, I think it might be easier if I just include a couple of more messages like so, and we'll do one last one with perhaps Sam. And here we'll say, hi, Sam. Okay, so we have this entire list now. I'm gonna run the application one more time, and there's gonna be some flickering, and there's a small chance that the image being loaded doesn't actually come in correctly. So that one looked fine. I'm gonna do this one more time, and I'll show you what the fix to this bug is right here. So there is this issue where sometimes the image doesn't get loaded into the correct cell. And the reason is because inside of MessagesController, we have this, it's not exactly a bug, but what happens is, let me see if I can quit out of the simulator here and rerun my app. What's happening is that inside of this reload statement, inside of observe user messages, we're reloading the cell or reloading the entire table view quite a few times. So see how Sam Tarley here is actually using Tyrion's image. So that's incorrect. And I'm going to show you what this is doing by using this print statement of print. Let's see, we reloaded the table and kind of observe what happens in our console down here for the amount of times that this actually gets called. So quite a few times, roughly 10 times for this entire table view. Basically, we reload the entire table every time a message is being observed inside of perhaps this user messages node here. It's pretty much what is happening. So the fix is to actually make sure we only call the reload table once. And this is somewhat tricky, and I'm not even sure this is the correct fix, but it's a workaround that I have to actually fix this Firebase issue. Now I'm going to show you exactly what that is by first introducing a delay into this reload. And I'm going to just introduce an NS timer dot schedule timer with a scheduled delay of 1 second. So 1 is 1 second. Target is self. Selector, I'll create this pound selector, this function called handle reload table. User info is nil, and repeat. We don't want it to repeat, so we put a false value there. So handle reload table is this function I create down here. Right. And I believe this also needs a self. So what this is going to do is actually perform the reload instead. So we just paste it in there. And now I'm going to run the application. And what this is going to do is after 1 second, the table will reload. So it's going to take just a bit of time. You notice how after 1 second, it kind of makes the reload a little better is what I've found inside of this application. So sometimes you might be able to see the incorrect images even with this 1 second delay. Now, if I introduce 0.01 perhaps, this delay is going to be so small that you might be able to see the bug kind of manifest itself inside this controller. So you see the flickering that occurs, and this Hodor image, or this Hodor profile, and this Brienne profile is really not the correct images. So how do we force this reload to only occur once? Well, this is a little tricky, but if we first have introduce this var timer of this NS timer right here as an optional like that. And if we set this timer equal to this 0.1 second timer right there, we can, let's see, introduce a self there and fix the compiler error. And if we perform a reload like this, we can actually modify this timer so that this gets fired once only. So you see the Sam Tarley image is still incorrect. And if we call self.timer.invalidate right up here, we will hopefully see the amount of reloads reduced inside of the console. So let's see what happens in here. You see how the reload is now only 3 times, and this list is rendered correctly right now. And this doesn't exactly fix the issue entirely, but it's a good fix if you simply reduce or increase this to perhaps 1/100th of a second, or maybe this is 1/10 of a second. And let's watch what happens inside of our table view right now. So everything loads properly, and there's actually no flickering going on inside of the table view every time we perform the message fetch. So everything just gets kind of put in place. And this is my workaround for the amount of times that you actually have to reload the table. So another kind of small fix here is I noticed that I have this function called observe messages, which I'm not actually using at all. So let's just delete that guy. Makes our code just a little bit cleaner. All right, so the question is, how does this timer invalidation actually work inside of our code of observing the messages? Well, I'm going to show you by putting a breakpoint in line 61 right there. Run the application. I'm going to show you how many times this actually gets executed. So perhaps line 62 right there. And we get that, this. And if we punch this continue button roughly 10 times, we will eventually exit the loop like that. And every time the message comes in, we set a new timer and we say, okay, in 1/10 of a second, fire off this reload. So because this is observing so many messages inside of this observation, we just invalidate this timer every time we get a new message. And finally, at the very end, only one timer gets called. So to make this even more obvious, I'm going to print a statement here saying we just canceled our timer. And right here, we can use another print statement. And we can just say, schedule a table reload in 0.1 seconds. And if we run this application without the breakpoint, you can see that this message will occur at the very end inside of this right here. So what happens is that we continuously cancel our timer, and then we continuously set up a new timer to schedule with 0.1 seconds and execute the reload. Finally, at the very end, we no longer cancel the timer, but we actually just wait for the reload after 0.1 seconds. That's how that kind of works. Okay, that's going to wrap it up for today's video lesson. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the content. Make sure to hit the like button if you do. And to stay tuned for the rest of the Firebase 3 series, make sure to hit that subscribe button. All right, in the next episode, I'm going to show you guys how to properly manage the keyboard and how to interactively dismiss it by dragging the collection view down. And furthermore, if you want to download the project for today's video lesson, you can click on the download link above. Follow me on Twitter at Build App. Finally, if you want to learn more about iOS development, click on the 3 playlist links on the bottom to get even better at iOS programming. That's about it, guys. Keep on coding, and I'll see you next time.